Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to this wonderful Tuesday night. My name is AJ, one half of this wonderful dynamic duo. And as always, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Poiema Studio Podcast. But before we get started tonight, let me introduce my wonderful co-host.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I'm very excited for tonight's topic as we continue to talk about mental health awareness for suicide prevention.
Of course, as always, but we should introduce my boy, Ed.
Yes. Ed, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very good. It's nice coming back here and, spend the time here with you guys. And
Is that
talk
like
about,
a double meaning? Because you're like behind the camera, so you're technically like back there.
Yeah.
So you're like back here, like you're here, but you're...
Yeah, I'm doing behind the scenes footage. So, maybe it'll come out within 5 years or so.
And then
We'll see.
shout out my boy Caleb back here. He can't really say anything right now, but I just want to shout him out just for give him a little love.
Yes. He has a lot to say if you give him the mic, but...
Well, we can't right now.
Well, hey, thanks for everyone watching again. Poiema Studio Podcast. Let us know what you think about our conversations. Give us a like. Caleb would have said smash that subscribe
button. I know she can't really speak sometimes.
I can't speak. Oh my gosh.
It's sad, but we should get into our topic. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I dragged us off a bit.
It's okay.
I'm saying a little bit of rambling.
Hey, this is real. This is live.
As always.
We're just trying to open up the platform.
Well, it's life for us.
Yeah. Open up the conversation for, to bring awareness and talk about things that matter.
That's the whole purpose of this. And what's today's topic? I feel like I'm excited for you to introduce it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that we could definitely talk about what is mental illness.
Yes.
I know we had kind of started the conversation about men's mental health awareness. Mm-hmm. And actually, July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So next episode, we're going to have... The next few episodes, we're going to have people that fit in that category to share stories.
I like that.
I know we've shared in the past, in some of the conversations we've had, the alarming statistics of suicide. Suicide currently is the second leading cause of death in 10 to 24-year-olds.
Wow.
It's also, NAMI released a statistic that proved in that study that 46% of people who took their life had undiagnosed mental illness, and 90% of them had actually experienced symptoms. And so I know we had talked about, bringing up the symptoms and talking about what are the signs and what can we do about it. But I felt like it was really important to just talk about what mental illness is. So the definition of mental illness is an illness that affects a person's thinking, and also it affects their emotions and behavior. And the mental illness disrupts their life. Like it affects them going to school, affects them like going to work, the way they carry out daily activities, and also the way they engage in satisfying relationships.
Yeah, it's a hindrance on just pretty much on almost every aspect of your life. Like you said, work, play, pleasure. It's just, apologies, but it's just always something that, I guess you have to describe it, mental disorders, to be able to address it. So it is something that we need to, I guess, get people aware of. Because like it's not, I think one of my favorite comparisons is it's not a physical ailment. So it's not something that's so easily like diagnose or easy to validate, I guess, in a way. Because if you see somebody with a broken arm, like you can be like, oh, it's a broken arm, like you understand the pain. But when it comes from like something that's like a mental disorder, it's a lot harder, because somebody could look physically good on the outside, but on the inside it's like a totally different story. So,
and that's actually what I think a lot of times we do is we hide behind our smile, we hide behind a mask that everything is all right, because first of all, especially youth dealing with it, like, the statistics said 10 to 24-year-olds, 10-year-olds, they really don't know what they're feeling. They don't know how to explain it.
Exactly.
I remember...
You just assume it's normal in a way. Like, at that age, it's almost like... Because you have nothing to base it off of. Because you've only had, 10 years of life? What are you basing off? Like, anything you feel, you just assume is natural at that point. Like, it's just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it's good that I feel like we try to make kids aware at a younger age. And people in general, just like parents as well. So for when they... It's time, and they need to address it with their children. They're more well prepared and well versed in what it is and how to address it. And that's why I think we're here to give the signs as well, because everybody can look physically well, but there's a few signs the devil's
Yeah.
in the details.
Yeah.
real.
And, not everyone that has any symptom and sign necessarily has a mental illness.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that it's something they have to get diagnosed. Like, it has to affect their life in a way that it can be diagnosed as an illness,
Right.
I remember, when I was in first grade, and I've shared this story before, how I had anxiety from being in an all English class, and I didn't know Spanish. And I started picking my hair, like down to my root. And that was like a sign for me now. Like, I know that it was something that I was dealing with. I know a lot of kids also like have stomach pains before they go to school, especially if they're being bullied, because I don't really think that a lot of times we understand how bullying can affect a child's life. Like, I'm thinking, what can really affect a child at 10, 11, 12 years old that they are, having these behaviors, they're having these symptoms. And I think like bullying is a huge one.
It is.
I remember being bullied in school too, because I didn't know English and I didn't know how to make friends. I really didn't have any friends. And now thinking back on it, I never went home and told my parents like I'm being bullied. It was just felt like it was something like that it happened to a lot of people. Maybe like you didn't.
I felt that. Like, you just kind of go through it, and you don't want to be that one person who kind of like is too weak in a sense, for lack of a better term. Like, you're the one that can't handle life. I guess, if that makes sense. That's the ultimate feeling I got as a kid when I got bullied. Is like I didn't want to tell anybody at first, because it's like I didn't want to be have that attention and have like that feeling of like, well, I'm weak or something, that I can't handle it. So I totally understand that. And then, but those bullying is so bad in those periods too, because you're developing.
Yeah.
So you internalize things a lot more, and you take things to heart. As a kid, it's really hard to filter out what is just said to be hurtful and what is the honest truth. So at that point, you kind of start to internalize a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Which makes it hard to have friends, because then you assume these things about yourself that you think people believe, but it's just the effects of bullying in a way.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, it's been proven that the PTSD that derives from bullying also happens. It's the same effect in the brain on a child than a soldier that comes back from war. So, I mean, it's pretty alarming, because the stories I've heard of these young boys that take their life, it does come from like something like bullying. And I think that we need to create more awareness on just teaching our children how to not be bullies, and what to do if your friend is being bullied, or what to do when you see another child being bullied.
I think making kids more accepting,
Accepting, yeah.
Because there's a lot of social things beforehand. I mean, I think our society's a bit better, but there's a lot of social stigmas that were out there that make a lot of kids really, I guess, exclusionary, very mean in a way. And I think that's where we need to start. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't want it to get too in the sense of political in the way I'm trying to explain it, but yeah, I just feel like there's a lot more things we could do. Like I said, we push before therapy. I think that would really help kids as well at a young age, being able to talk with somebody older and that older person guide them. Because sometimes they won't admit it to their parents, but slowly get the kids to trust a certain counselor or therapist or something.
Yeah.
That allows them to open up, and then express those feelings at a younger age, so it's not all boiled up and pent inside. Because like how we said, we didn't want to talk about it, so you kind of have those emotions. You let those emotions fester when you don't express it, or get to the bottom of it. And as a kid, you don't know how to do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, some people ask me, like, so how do I know that my child has a mental illness, or how do I know that it's something that needs to be diagnosed, and that what we see is it affects their life in such a way that they don't want to go to school, or they start isolating, that they don't want to go and do the normal activities they would normally do.
Right.
I know that we talked about in the past about hygiene, about how some people that they don't want to shower, they lost, kind of the love for themselves at that point. And we judge that, because you're like, what are you doing? You need to take a shower. Get out of bed. And those are the signs that really should be some triggers, for us as parents, or, for us as adults.
Some warning signs. Yeah,
some warning signs. Like, kind of just being able to see how someone is totally different from like their norm.
Right.
So
it does change that. Like, those are good signs. Of course, not every introverted child is depressed or anxious. It just could be the of course just the way they are.
Yeah.
But those are really good signs to look at. Like if your kid changes in behavior in the sense like again not brushing their teeth like as they once were, or not taking care of themselves and showering, or deodorant, or like just anything like that. Just lack of care for themselves. Lack of self-care is a dead sign usually that like there's something going on.
And I think it's more like in the adults that would trigger me to think like what's going on, because I mean, as kids, trust me, my kid, I'm always fighting with him like, go take a shower. He's like, no, I don't want to take a shower. He's to a point where
that's definitely for people like a bit older.
Yeah, a bit older, like maybe like their early like teens, where you start seeing that they're not taking care of themselves. You know, also something that, you know, I experienced when I was going through my own struggles was how much I slept. Like I literally slept all the time, and I just could not find myself motivated to get out of bed. And a lot of people that, I mean, not like a lot of people, but the people that I reached out to, it just like, I felt like they judged it. You know, they're like, oh, well, why can't you just get out of bed? Like, you know, go do something you really like. And I'm just like, I didn't have it. Like, I didn't have it in me. I understand that. I just wanted to be like away from everyone. I wanted to forget everything that I was feeling. I wanted to just be to myself. And, you know, I would just like, want to disappear from the world in a certain way, and that was the easiest and safest way to do it.
Oh yeah, and that's totally a big sign is sleeping like a lot, because I mean I don't do it as much anymore, hence, you know, feeling a lot better. But I remember a lot during the harder, tougher periods, I was always trying to sleep. Like I was always tired, because it's like a lot of work to keep yourself contained and keep yourself okay, you know, because it's like trying to keep your head above water all day, you know, like trying to not trying to drown in those emotions. Yeah. So you get exhausted. So I think that's a really clear sign, especially for anybody of any age, is just constantly sleeping, you know?
Yeah. Or like
unnatural amounts.
Yeah. What I experienced too was insomnia. So I wouldn't sleep at night. Yeah. And then the next day I'd be so tired. And then it was just kind of like a cycle, an unhealthy cycle of
a vicious
of not knowing how to deal and process the emotions that I was going through.
Yeah. So it kind of like, it all ends up like when you're unable to control those emotions, you know, and sort things out, it kind of starts to bleed out into everything else again. Hence why all the signs like of work and school and stuff, like when you're unable to control those emotions, it starts to affect everything outside. So say you're a focused person in school, usually something's building up, something's stopping it, you know, you're not maybe not going to school as much, maybe not doing the work like the way you were used to doing it. You know, and that necessarily doesn't mean you're depressed, but it's a good sign. It's a good flag, you know, it might be an indication that something's happening up there.
And the thing is that the earlier that we can get a child or a teenager to deal with these emotions or get the professional help, I feel like that's the best way for them not to deal with these things as adults.
Exactly.
Because I think as adults, we find it harder to get help, like professional help. Either it has to do with insurance, or it has to do with even the ability to get help, because we just don't find the right people around us in our environment to help us do that.
Again, that's why I always I got to figure out how to advocate for this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to push it, but I really want to get like counselors or like therapists really in schools at a younger age, you know. Again, doesn't have to be like some like super like, oh, sit down, they write on a notepad, but you know, like one-on-one with somebody in school, so the kids have somebody to trust, you know, because sometimes, again, like I said, you don't trust your parents, because that could be the source of the problem. So having somebody like a counselor or like a therapist there to talk during school, you know, have a certain period designated to that. Yeah. You got something to say, Ed?
I do, actually.
I saw the mic and I was like, all right, I want to let Ed get it butt in on this. I see the excitement.
No, I like that idea. I think you're absolutely right. I think more counselors should be there at a young age. And like you said, parents could be probably the cost of it, or maybe not understanding fully, like since being, you know, a minority, or just being raised up in a Mexican household, you see that it's not a thing. They'll just like placate, or like, you know, just stop.
Exactly.
Like, it's like that's not a thing type of thing, you know. They'll try to tell you up, man,
it doesn't
up,
exist,
maybe, or just kind of forget about it, you know.
Ponte las pilas.
Yeah, ponte las pilas, you know, if it's a guy or if it's a boy or girl. So it's a little bit different, but at the end of the day, they don't really understand it, or they think it's taboo, or it's just a thing that doesn't exist in our community.
Yep.
No, exactly. And that's why I think in school we need to teach not only like the intelligence of like, book smarts of history, math, and things. I think we need to teach emotional intelligence.
Yes,
because we come out into the world unknowing how to like kind of filter it out. Some of us end up better off than others, of course. Yeah. Because some I think just end up more in tune with themselves at a certain point, but not everybody can be. So I think that with the help of like a counselor being there, it could give you somebody at a younger age to help you sort out through things. So as you grow up, you kind of figure out, okay, well, I was taught like these emotions, I could deal like this, I could feel like that, like this isn't right, this is natural, I was feeling this because of that, like I feel like it would definitely benefit kids down the line because it would give them less weight to bear as they grow up, and give the kids more focus into other things. Yeah.
And you know what? There's one thing that I know that we've talked about in our group. It's about adverse childhood experiences, like traumas that children go through. And it could be a trauma like even your parents divorcing. It could be a trauma like the one I can think back on myself, like moving from an all-English class, from a bilingual class to an all-English class, something like that. Like even a drastic change that we as adults may think like, oh, you're fine, you're a kid, you're gonna deal with it okay, you're smart and you're a child, so you should be able to handle it. A lot of times we don't see how it can affect a child,
Exactly.
Even like moving schools, they say it could put such a heavy trauma on a child. That's why I think it's important that we think about those things that maybe as adults we don't think.
Again, you got to think about like I go back to the whole like especially 10 years old, right? We'll go back. That is like a reference age. That's 10 years. Like think about how like I'm
10 year like in fifth grade.
I'm 22, right? Like 10 years just seems so small now compared to when I was like 15.
Yeah.
Like 10 was like, oh wow, like 10 years, it's a lot of years. Now I'm 22, I'm like, that's two of me, you know what I'm saying? Like 10 is not a lot of time into a kid. Like if you move them from a school, that's like their whole world. Like you're changing their whole world, like what all they've ever known. Like if they've been there that long. So of course you got to think about the weight that it bears on the child. Like it's new scenery
and friends.
Exactly. Like, friends.
Their whole environment changes. And it's always like we see movies about this, about the new kid in class, and we don't really talk about the trauma that could be on a child. And, thinking back, like what you're saying, referencing back to 10 years old, that's right. Like in fifth grade and like right before you start going into middle school. I was talking to a young girl earlier today about transitioning into 7th grade. And she said, yeah, it's a whole like new chapter of my life. And I was like, yeah, it is. And that is, that's the reality that in middle school, man, like you're going through physical puberty changes. You're going through like identity issues that maybe we don't think about. Like
hormones
that.
Are a serious thing, man. Like they really mess you up as a kid.
Yeah.
And then now you got to go through other things. That's why I think, again, having somebody to vent to and talk to and figure out those emotions with would be essential and key, I think, to healthier people, like more people well versed in how to deal with emotions, not only of themselves but of other people, making more compassionate people.
Yes. To be able to teach our kids kindness, like towards others.
You have to teach kindness towards yourself first before you teach that to anybody else. So again, we need to have that to where kids learn how to love themselves in a sense and learn how to be wise in emotions, because that's something that controls our life, whether we know it or not. Like emotions are just everything.
And like even when you're around that age where you start struggling with these emotions and things, another thing is like the outside, the like if you're a chubby kid or if you're
shout out my chubby kid.
I was a really chubby kid at that age too. And I used to, when I used to look at other girls, like I used to be like, why don't I look like that? Why am I not skinny? Another thing was like, we were 3 girls and my dad was the only one that worked, and my sisters and I kind of laugh about it now that we had the Adidas with like the 4 lines. 4 black lines. We didn't have Adidas has 3 or 4. I forget. 3, right?
3, yeah.
Yeah. So we had like the 4. Whoa. Like we used to like, we couldn't afford the brand stuff. Like, but my dad was always like hardworking. Try to give us like
Abibas.
Probably.
Instead of Nike,
you know,
instead of Nike, you had Hikey.
Yeah, but my dad didn't know any better. You know, he was trying to do the best that he could. You know, supporting us all. My mom didn't work; she was a stay-at-home mom, and it's like, you know, we went to school and we kind of were embarrassed. Like we did feel like, you know, we weren't like the cool kids.
You
we
had the B-box.
Like, I don't know. Oh, you're gonna have to tell me what that is. But what I'm saying is a lot of kids, you know, they're not able to afford brand name stuff, or like they don't have cool things like other kids. And like that's another thing too. You start going into middle school, into high school, where everybody cares about the way you look on the outside.
I remember that.
And that definitely affects, you know, your emotional state. It affects, you know, anything that is emotionally like, you know, connected, I think connects with your mental health.
And fitting in is an emotional thing. It's like a social, like you want to be part of the social, you know, units. Yeah, you want to be socially accepted. So if dressing is the new trend, you know, a certain style, of course. Yeah. People are going to judge you off that. Yeah. Sadly, you know. But again, kids are superficial. Yes. Like their life is so short. Like everything just it doesn't really have the weight behind it, because again they haven't experienced all
but
that.
It's like real emotions though. Like
exactly, that's why we need to keep it in mind, like it's real emotions, and we can't judge them off their age. What they feel is real because that's all they've known. Like that short amount of time is all they know. So we have to kind of base our analysis and base our, you know, judgments off that. Yeah.
And maybe next time we can bring in Caleb or other younger kids that will talk about this, because you know they know, especially now that they have.
Hey, look, I'm a kid at heart. I could do it.
Yeah, but like it would be really cool to get like their perspective as a child, especially now. Like, you know, what they see on their phones. Like I never had a phone like my child has a phone now.
Dude, I didn't
or an
either.
iPad. Like they get to see life in a whole different way than we see it now.
Like at 20, like I'm 22, but like when I was a kid, I think I got a phone at 9. And it was like a Motorola Razr. So yeah, it wasn't anything like this. Like there was no internet. Like I couldn't just hop on Instagram and see my favorite like streamers or anything, or like
YouTubers that they have all these things that like they don't. And you know, there's just so many things that have changed. And you know, like I think it's good to bring awareness to talk about these things so that we can help our children. Like, you know,
with the speed of the growth of the internet, like the way the speed of it, like it's just, I think that's what why we see a growth in everything else as well. You know, like mental health for kids, like how it's declining because again, kids are more subject to emotions. They weren't so easily available back in the day, so you know, kids are more susceptible to feeling that. So again, we need to have people around them that can teach them emotional understanding, you know, and can sort things out. That's very important, instead of hiding and what's it called? Just not babying kids, but you know, just keeping them safe, keeping them away from everything. It's of course you don't teach them everything right away, but you gotta teach them emotional intelligence so they can understand better how to deal with things and not just.
I know that Caleb sometimes, like my son, he's come up to me like, oh, like even like the older brother thing, like the bullying of older siblings. Oh yeah. He'll be like, oh, my brother said this, and I'm like, well, is it true? And then he'll be like, well, I don't know, he said it. And I'm like, well, if it's not true, then don't believe it, you know, let it be. And I guess it's my form of helping them understand that it doesn't matter what people say. It's the confidence that you have in yourself. Like, don't just believe what someone says. Like, also just be able to feel confident about who you are. And, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like the acceptance, the self-love is a game changer, because no matter what somebody says, if you're confident and if you feel accepted, it's not going to affect you as much. And obviously as kids, as like young teenagers, you're going to like be immature and you're going to talk about each other. Exactly. But I think that we can definitely like create a better movement in our children's life if we can create a space where they learn to love themselves no matter what.
I totally agree. I wouldn't even know what else to come back after that, because that's just facts based, 100% based. Yes. Love it.
Well, I know that we have some guests coming up in our next episodes to share their stories.
I can't wait.
We have stories we would love to share with you guys. But again, let us know what you guys think about our podcast, about these conversations,
Remember
what topics.
To like, share. She already mentioned the comment. If this is on YouTube, which it probably is, subscribe.
Yes.
And thank you again for sharing your Tuesday night with us.
Yes.
Ed, any last words? I didn't think we get to hear your voice enough during the podcast session.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just extra quiet today.
Keep
it in the background. Making sure things are running right. There's a fire in the back. I'm just trying to put it out.
Yeah, we've had like 6 fires in the back. I might have left the tortilla in the microwave. If you've never microwaved a tortilla before, you've never lived.
Yeah, I left the spoon in the microwave.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay, that's another whole episode. I told you
not to melt the ice cream like that, bro.
Well, hey, yeah, let us know what you guys think. We really want to, bring awareness as much as we can to anything that will help us prevent suicide, that will help us decrease the rates of suicide, even if it's one life at a time.
Again, yes, like she said, just give us ideas, share your stories if you want. Yeah. We're always excited to hear from everybody, constructive criticism, whatever you liked, yada, yada, yada. We love to hear it. Thank you again for spending your Tuesday nights. We love you. Stay safe and sane. She knows what sane means, finally. But thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.